Australian scientists have broken a new record after finding the world's deepest fish south of Japan. The expedition's chief scientist, Professor Jamieson, joins us live now. Professor, really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Thank you so much. Tell us, how deep are we talking here, and where was it? How did you even get cameras so far down to capture these images?
So this fish was filmed in the Ogasawara Trench, which is south of Japan, at a depth of 8,336 metres. And we do it using freefall cameras. So they free fall off the vessel. They take about 3.5 hours to free fall to the seafloor. And we use bait in front of cameras, and animals come in, we film them, and then we release the weight at the end. And the landers, we call them, rise to the surface, and we pick them up and download them and see what we get.
Okay, we've got some of these images that we're showing our viewers now. I understand you captured some video of some snailfish at that depth. Tell us a bit about the snailfish. It's not one I've come across.
The snailfish, well, the one you just saw there is now officially the deepest fish ever seen, and it's a very tiny little juvenile. But snailfish are the real masters of the deep sea, even though they're not actually really deep sea fish. There's about 400 species of snailfish, and they're mostly shallow. But they've now sort of percolated down through the oceans and have overtaken a lot of the classic deep sea fish. In fact, snailfish are now 1,000 metres deeper than the next deepest fish, which is incredible.
And so how do you compare the features of a fish living in the deep sea, for example? How do they compare with those living further up, broadly?
Well, snailfish are generally quite weird in that they're very gelatinous. So when you watch that video and you see that hint on the side of their bodies, that's actually their liver. You can see right through them. And bladder, so they're not maintaining buoyancy using gas, which would be one of the reasons why they're probably very good at being so deep. Whereas the sort of normal deep sea fish are much more gnarly looking, they're much more rugged, they're kind of big and bulky and much bigger developed eyes and so on. So just looking at them, they're very, very different.
And looking at those pictures, it looks like the sea floor there is pretty bare. Is that what you would have expected to see at that level?
Actually, in the trenches, it varies a lot. So when you get down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, for example, the sediment on the seafloor is very, very flat. And as soon as you come up off the slope, it becomes a boulder field. And so I wouldn't read too much into what the seafloor looks there, because we could deploy a camera the next day a couple of 100 metres away and find something quite different.
Okay, so is it likely that there are other fish that we haven't discovered yet who are living at even deeper depths, or does the water get to a point where it's really too cold for even fish to live in?
We don't think so. What's driving it is essentially the fluid inside the cell, and it gets to a point where the fish can no longer put any more of this fluid in the cell to counteract the pressure. So we've believed for some time that they can't go deeper than about 8,400. We've just not really had the opportunity to really properly try and prove that. And one of the reasons of going to Japan was it's a bit warmer than some of the places we've been before, because if the temperature is slightly warmer, theoretically animals could go deeper. And we see this at Antarctica, where it's very cold and deep sea animals come up quite shallow. And so I see this more of a story of being a success, in that we have now managed to accumulate enough information and know-how about the deep sea, we can make these predictions and they come true.
So where else would you like to go, Alan? Where would you like to see next in terms of the next project? Where are the deepest oceans around the world? Where do you find them?
Most of the big deep trenches are in the West Pacific, off Russia, off Japan, off Guam, off New Zealand and Tonga. Those are the real big ones. There's a few others kicking around too. I think for us, we really want to have a go at the trenches in Antarctica, because there's all sorts of interesting things here, again, to do with being very deep, being very cold. And the next expedition for us is we're going to cross the Pacific multiple times. So rather than it being a story in the vertical, if you like, it's going to be a horizontal story as how things change over extraordinarily large distances.
Right. And when you talk about going to waters of Antarctica and how cold that is, what are we talking about in terms of the actual temperature at the bottom of the seafloor around those parts?
So there's a trench down in Antarctica called the South Sandwich Trench, and it's the only sub-zero trench in the world. And when I say sub-zero, I think it's like 0.01 or something. It's just slightly less than 0 degrees. And that's quite unique. The next coldest trench is probably off New Zealand, and it's about 1.3. sound much to you and I, but biologically speaking, that's huge. So there's a lot of reasons to go down to Antarctica, and it's cool as well.